Welcome to Bible Believers Fellowship and the ministry of bbfohio.com and the conclusion of our two-part study of Galatians chapter 3, verses 17 to 24, titled, The Law Our Schoolmaster. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 8 through 11 says, But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully, knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust. And this is the text we are looking over as we pick up in our study of Galatians chapter 3, verses 17 to 24.
Now, what people are ignorant of, this thing with the law. That I've heard Christians say, well, we don't need the law anyway. We're under grace. You are under grace if you're saved, but society still needs law. The schools ought to have the 10 Commandments in the hallway, and every time a kid comes in and every time he goes out, he should be reminded of God's law. In America, you're going to hell by your own choice. You've committed suicide by throwing the law out of your school. And what you've also done is robbed the young people of a sense of their need of God. You took the law off the wall, and now you preach that crap called self-esteem. And some of you have been so filled with psychology that you don't know that's crap. I don't esteem myself. I esteem God. And God, when I am saved, is in me, so I know He sees everything I do, everything I say, every move I make, so I want to please Him. That's what causes me to live the Christian life. But this idea that you tell a bunch of unsaved, lost kids that they should love themselves when God sees sin, you're lying to that kid. You're lying to him. That kid needs to understand they're a sinner, but they can be saved. Amen. Schools ought to be telling kids that too. Amen. You say, what about separation of church and state? The church, the state shouldn't even be in the schools. The schools should be controlled by you, the parent. The children don't belong to the state. They belong to the parents. Amen. And it's the parents' responsibility to teach those kids, not a bunch of strangers who went off to college and fornicated their way to a degree and then came into school and want to fill my kid's head with stupidity. Amen. My kids belong to me. Amen. And what I teach my kids, I taught my kids the law. Amen. Kind of like the lady, I should have got that video and showed it to you. How many of you saw that lady grab that kid off the streets in Baltimore and just smack? She is the law. And that kid knows his need now, don't he? Amen. Amen. That's what the law is. The law, when you open up the book and you're not saved, the law goes, that hurt. I'm never going back to that church again. That preacher preached at me. I know he doesn't really know me, but he still preached at me. Yeah. I have people write me letters and they say, you know what? If I'd been in your church and you preached that, I'd been thinking you'd preach right at me. Yeah. The book is alive.
Amen. Well.
Amen. It ain't me. I'm dumb as a rock. Amen. Left to myself, I'd just be as pagan as anybody. But that book, and it's alive. You open it up and let it speak to you, you're going to get right there in the face. And what you ought to do, if your heart's right with God, you know what you do? Thank you. Amen, James. But you know what the rebellious do? Get angry. It's not my fault. It's somebody else. Somebody else has caused me to be this way. Or I'm poor. Or I'm not as pretty as she is. Or whatever. You know, they just come up with some excuse to get angry at God. Don't get angry. It's like the Bible, you know, I like to say, don't leave mad, just leave. You know? Amen? Amen? No, but when you read the Bible, don't leave and don't leave angry. Repent. Amen. That's all there is to it. So we've got a world that is lawless now. People ask me what I think about Baltimore. I think the cops were negligent, but I don't think they murdered the guy. I think Freddie Gray was a piece of trash. I think he got himself in that situation because he was a lawless scumwad. And those cops have to put up with that every day. So don't get mad at the cops every time some dopehead gets killed. Should he have died? No. Somebody needs to be an investigation, and whoever is responsible should be punished according to the law. Now, this woman came out there yesterday telling everybody, you know, she's going to do this and that. That's not justice. Justice is we've arrested them, but they're still innocent until proven guilty. Right. But if they find them guilty, there should be punishment. Mm-hmm. But what's going on in this world now, who knows what they're going to do because it's lawless. They've just thrown God's law out the window. And that's what it's going to get worse, folks. What do they call them? Banana courts? Isn't that what they call them? Kangaroo courts. Kangaroo court. Where did I get? Banana Republic. That's what I was thinking. I like monkeys better than kangaroos. But kangaroo courts is a sign of lawlessness. And that's what we're getting. Amen. Now what we're about to see is presented by an unsaved Jew. I want you to know that. But it is absolutely true. So I want you to watch this.
No document in world history so changed the world for the better as did the Ten Commandments. Western civilization, the civilization that developed universal human rights, created women's equality, ended slavery, created parliamentary democracy, among other unique achievements, would not have developed without them. As you will see when each of the Ten Commandments is explained, these commandments are as relevant today as when they were given over 3,000 years ago. In fact, they're so relevant that the Ten Commandments are all that is necessary to make a good world, a world free of tyranny and cruelty. Imagine for a moment a world in which there was no murder or theft. In such a world, there would be no need for armies or police or weapons. Men and women and children could walk anywhere at any time of day or night without any fear of being killed or robbed. Imagine further a world in which no one coveted what belonged to their neighbor, a world in which children honored their mother and father and the family unit thrived, a world in which people obeyed the injunction not to lie. The recipe for a good world is all there in these 10 sublime commandments. But there is a catch. The 10 Commandments are predicated on the belief that they were given by an authority higher than any man, any king, or any government. That's why the sentence preceding the 10 Commandments asserts the following: God spoke all these words. You see, if the 10 Commandments, as great as they are, were given by any human authority, then any person could say, who is this man Moses? Who is this king or queen? Who is this government to tell me how I should behave? Okay, so why is God indispensable to the 10 Commandments? Because, to put it as directly as possible, if it isn't God who declares murder wrong, murder isn't wrong. Yes, this strikes many people today as incomprehensible, even absurd. Many of you are thinking, is this guy saying you can't be a good person if you don't believe in God? Let me respond as clearly as possible. I am not saying that. Of course there are good people who don't believe in God, just as there are bad people who do. And many of you are also thinking, I believe murder is wrong. I don't need God to tell me. Now, that response is only half true. I have no doubt that if you're an atheist and you say that you believe murder is wrong, You believe murder is wrong. But forgive me, you do need God to tell you. We all need God to tell us. You see, even if you figured out murder is wrong on your own, without God and the 10 Commandments, how do you know it's wrong? Not believe it's wrong, I mean know it's wrong. The fact is, you can't. Because without God, right and wrong are just personal beliefs, personal opinions. I think shoplifting is okay, you don't. Unless there is a God, all morality is just opinion and belief. And virtually every atheist philosopher has acknowledged this. Another problem with the view that you don't need God to believe that murder is wrong is a lot of people haven't shared your view. And you don't have to go back very far in history to prove this. In the 20th century, millions of people in communist societies and under Nazism killed about 100 million people. And that doesn't count a single soldier killed in war. So don't get too confident about people's ability to figure out right from wrong without a higher authority. It's all too easy to be swayed by a government or a demagogue or an ideology, or to rationalize that the wrong you're doing isn't really wrong. And even if you do figure out what is right and wrong, God is still necessary. People who know the difference between right and wrong do the wrong thing all the time. You know why? Because they can. They can because they think no one is watching. But if you recognize that God is the source of moral law, you believe that He is always watching. So even if you're an atheist, you would want people to live by the moral laws of the 10 Commandments. And even an atheist has to admit that the more people who believe God gave them, and therefore they are not just opinion, the better the world would be. In 3,000 years, no one has ever come up with a better system than the God-based 10 Commandments for making a better world, and no one ever will. I'm Dennis Prager.
Amen. That's right. And when he says good, obviously I always get there's none good, no one. The Bible also does say that there's good people. But in the sense of in God's eyes, there's none good. We all need saved. But in the sense of being a good neighbor, there are good neighbors who are atheists. That's what he was saying. But even they have been raised in a country that taught them that there was a God and that law came from God. And so his point stands, but this perfect world will never happen this side of the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. So the law is perfect. The problem isn't the law. The problem is us. We just blow it. And that was the point. Law requires ruling with a rod, see? And that's what's going to happen in the millennium. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
This hippie Jesus that just, let's all just get along. All we need is love. It's no. Jesus is going to prove it. And Revelation 2:26-27 says, "And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations." Now this is talking about people going through the tribulation. "And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father." See, during the millennium, those of us who are saved now will be in a glorified state. Those who are still in mortal flesh and haven't been judged yet, they will be ruled under King Jesus. Now, it'll be, this may sound funny, but it'll be much easier to obey the law then. Why? Because there will be no pornography when you go to Kroger's or Giant Eagle or wherever and shop every time you go through the aisle. All that porn, it's called soft porn. That's what that is. All those magazines with all the half-clad Holly weird nuts. That's porn. And every time you go to a shop, you have to look at cleavage and butts. And I don't want to see it. It's coming a day when I won't.
Amen.
They won't be on billboards. The internet porn industry is the largest industry on the internet right now. There will be none during the millennium. Cable TV, we won't even worry about TV. But if there is TV, you won't have every other show showing the sodomite being the nicest person in the show, and that how everybody ought to accept Sodom marriage. That won't happen. So the temptations for sin will not be there like they are today. And the millennium, He will rule with a rod of iron. The commandments are perfect, but history proves that man cannot keep them perfectly. I love history. I think every great preacher I know have said you need to learn the King James Bible and history. Why? Because history confirms the King James Bible. Amen. The law was given for God's purpose between the time of the promise of the seed until the coming of that seed in Jesus. And we read that in verses 19 to 20. But why? The law has a purpose, but that purpose is not to save souls. And all these, like the Seventh-day Adventists and the Judaizers, the Hebrew roots we talked about a minute ago, these groups try to use the law as a standard for salvation. And that's not its purpose. If law could save, Jesus would have been unnecessary. Look down here, chapter 3 again, and verse 21. Is the law then against the promises of God? God forbid. For if there had been a law given which could have given life, verily righteousness should have been by the law. Yep. And Jesus wouldn't have had to come and die. But Jesus had to come and die. That's right. Because we're all lawbreakers. And the law doesn't produce salvation, and it was never intended to produce salvation. The reality is, the law makes the coming of Jesus to die for sin necessary. Look at 22. Read that with me. But the Scripture hath concluded all under sin, that the promise by faith of Jesus Christ might be given to them that believe. The law required a payment for sin, and Jesus became the curse and died for the sins of the whole world. Calvinism is a lie. Jesus did not just die for some elect select. The payment, the propitiation has been made for all. The appropriation belongs to those who believe. That's what it said. Amen. Amen. But before salvation by faith was made possible by Jesus, the law came to save this purpose. Read verse 23. But before faith, read it with me. But before faith came, we were kept under the law, shut up under the faith, which should afterwards be revealed. See, those Old Testament saints, they were not saved by grace through faith while they were on earth. They had to remain in the covenant. And when they died, they went into a place called paradise. And then when Jesus died on the cross, and we studied this in Mark, Jesus went into hell. He didn't suffer in hell like your charismatic nuts teach. He went into hell to preach. And He preached to the spirits in prison and declared their condemnation. Yes. And they then knew they were lost, for sure. Their questions were answered. But He also went to paradise where the thief was waiting for Him. Yep. Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. Jesus said, today you'll see me in paradise. He did. And Jesus went into paradise and He declared them free and took captivity captive and took them back with Him to heaven. And that's where the lost, or the saints in the Old Testament went, and that's where the saved go now when you die. You go immediately into paradise is now in heaven. Amen. Amen. The law could not save us, but was to show us our need. Look at verse 24 and read that with me. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we might be justified by faith. See, that's the purpose of the law. Civilly, it's to keep things in order. Spiritually, it's to make you aware of your need. And that's the purpose it serves. That's why Satan hates it. The law is a blessing to those who see it for what it is, but it is a curse on those who seek to be saved by keeping it. I'm emphasizing that because these law cults are growing. And as soon as you hear somebody pushing the law as a way or means for you to either be saved or stay saved, you need to turn them off and go out the door if you're in a church that's preaching that. Amen. Acts 13, 38 and 40 said, "Be it known unto you therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins. And by him all that believe are justified from all things, from which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses. Beware therefore, lest that come upon you, which is spoken of in the prophets, when it talks about those who will not turn to the Messiah." The law teaches us this. How many of you know this verse? Romans 6:23. "For the wages of sin is death." Now stop. That's what the law teaches you. So that we can then receive the rest of the verse. "But the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord." Breaking the law is sin. It still is. But seeking salvation in the law is foolish. That is what is meant when we read this in Matthew 5:17. Remember Jesus saying, "Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill." No one else could. Only Jesus could fulfill the law. We're no longer under the penalty of breaking the law, but we are now under the umbrella of God's saving grace. We are no longer slaves. Can you say amen? Amen. Trash that ESV. Romans 6:14, "For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under law, but under grace." But this is only true if you have stopped trusting your works for salvation. You must believe the gospel in order to be under grace. Otherwise, you're still under the law, and that's what will judge you at a white throne. Amen. Question. Are you still trusting in yourself? Only you can answer these questions. Have you fully trusted in Jesus for your eternal salvation? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Let's sing about it.
Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing cross? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood? In love for